Before I start this, I need to say that I am a anime-only watcher of Delicious in Dungeon. I know manga readers will already have the answers to this, but I just wanted to make a fun little video essay. And I just wanted to theorize, work through my thoughts, and say what I think might be a pivotal theme of the story going forward. Episode 19 of Delicious in Dungeon dropped, and the latter half of the episode was a stunning, surrealist nightmare of Laios rescuing Marcille from her bad dreams. Nightmares, or Shen, are clam-like creatures that hide in pillows and inflict terrible dreams on their victims. And Laios, remembering how Fallon once cured Shuro of a nightmare earlier in the adventure, delves into the dream to see what's going on. This episode is really intriguing because it seems to hint at a through line of Marcille's character that we haven't seen explicitly expressed up until now. Her fear of loss, mortality, and the deaths of those around her, and the subtlety of the story being told through background paintings, and this whole extended metaphor that we're about to take way too seriously in this video. The very first nightmare that we see is actually Laios' nightmare. In Laios' dream, we hear the commanding voice of his father, callous and cruel and reeking of disappointment, as well as the insults from his childhood bullies, and Shuro returning to confirm what Laios truly feared a few episodes ago, that Shuro was never actually his friend and always had some underlying resentment towards him. We know that these kind of social interactions where Laios feels misunderstood and secretly hated are the closest thing Laios has to a true fear, aside from maybe monsters going extinct or something. Although this could maybe be a more surface level nightmare because Laios was only affected by the nightmare indirectly. It might not have materialized as anything beyond a surface level and very recent fear for him. Laios ends up in Marcille's dream, and this is where we spend the majority of the second half of the episode. Marcille's dream is in a long, dark corridor of a magical library with various tomes floating about in this weird, surreal dreamscape. Countless dusty tomes of spells and magic line the endless bookshelves, but we get the same feeling that this childhood version of Marcille does, that nothing in these spell books will be able to save her. Marcille appears in her dream as a younger version of herself, hiding behind her mother's painting, almost exactly how a shy child would hide behind their real mother. And from here, the story of Marcille's dream is explained. A terrifying monster is lurking the hallways of this place, and the only thing that anybody can do is run. And sure enough, we see the monster materialized in the flesh, and it's just as horrific as you could expect. An amorphous mass of tentacles, eyes, and gnashing teeth. Marcille and Laios, sure that they can do nothing to harm it, can only run away. Laios is even nicked by the monster, and when he's cut, he immediately starts aging, much to the horror of Marcille and Laios both. Much like the first encounter with paintings in the Living Paintings episode, I think Marcille's nightmare has some very subtle plot details sprinkled throughout. Originally, I only really caught the fact that Marcille's mother and Fallon were in the paintings, which was enough to get the idea that these are people that she truly fears losing, especially when we know that this monster that she fears is the death of those around her. But upon rewatching and carefully paying attention, this whole scene really tells the entire story of Marcille's life and spells out her relationship with death, mortality, and why it's her deepest, darkest fear. In the first set of paintings, we see a man who appears to be a younger version of Marcille's father. The first painting is just a portrait, but the second painting confirms that this is him. He's shown with a very young Marcille who looks at him with a childlike sense of love and wonder. It's interesting to note here that it appears as though her father is a human, a tall man, which would make Marcille a half-elf, and I don't think that's ever been revealed up until now. I could be wrong. The paintings take a dark turn immediately as the next one we see seems to show Marcille next to a frail body in what looks like a hospital bed. It seems like her father died when Marcille was still very young, which is confirmed by Laios later in the episode. From here, we see the mother's paintings become darker, more depressive. While her original painting was smiling and serene, the paintings after Marcille's father's death are melancholic. In the next series of paintings, we see Marcille's mother overlooking her father's grave and looking on with a dark, haunted expression. And Marcille is nowhere to be found in them. Returning to this chronological hallway of paintings, there's a painting of a character we haven't seen yet who appears like an older man. My first thought that this could be a mentor or instructor, maybe the first person who taught Marcille how to harness magic, even before her academy and adventuring days, because it sure as hell was not this character. Given their age, this could maybe even be a grandparent, or assuming he survived past the last painting, maybe her father very late in his life. Marcille's fear of death is symbolized in her dialogue to Laios. As they run through this nightmarish library, the dream Marcille says a few very telling quotes, especially after the reveal that this monster is her inner personification of her fear of death. Marcille says, "There's no such thing as safe in here. Nobody can beat that monster." And when you look at it through the lens of this monster being death, actually being this inevitable part of life, it's true. No one is safe from this monster. There's no beating this monster. That's why it's so fearsome to a young Marcille, because she's helpless to see the people around her, namely her father, die. The other line has to do with something Marcille's mother told her, and we have no indication whether this is real or part of the dream, so we can only take it with a grain of salt. But Marcille's mother told her that when she runs a lot faster than everyone else, so she's going to have to say goodbye to a lot of people. And this line, I feel, is especially loaded. This could mean anything, but in the extended metaphor that we're taking of Marcille running from death in this hallway, we can look at this as Marcille's own mortality. Running faster than everyone else can allude to her elven lifespan being much longer than the lifespan of those around her. This reflects Marcille's own line further on in the episode. She says everyone gives up on running with me and the thing swallows them. Now, Marcille is a child in this dream and she still has a very immature grasp on mortality. Nobody is giving up on running from death, but Marcille can't grasp the fact that people die. It's a very naive worldview, but it's one that we can understand that this young Marcille would have. She's asking, in no direct terms, why people leave her, why they stop running. Now, this whole dream experience, at least to me, is the subtle reason of why Marcille has always been studying resurrection, necromancy, souls, and ancient or black magic. If she's powerless in the face of her father's death as a child, Marcille as an adult is still acting under that influence of childhood trauma. In an attempt to never go through that pain again, Marcille is putting everything she has into the study of magic in hopes that she can use it to either resurrect those that she's lost or prevent that loss from ever happening in the first place. When Laios is scratched by the nightmare, another thing that happens is he immediately starts aging rapidly, and this could be part of Marcille's overarching fear of death, of mortality, is the actual act of aging. Obviously her father has already died, but what about the other older person that we saw in the painting? What about her mother now? To Marcille, aging is a visual representation of death, and it terrifies her. There's another interesting scene. Laios, when calming Marcille, says, "It'll be okay, we can figure out how to defeat it." It could just be Laios' demeanor in this episode, but it could also maybe allude to later in the series. If Marcille's ultimate goal is learning resurrection from this ancient book, maybe Laios is being more literal than he even realizes, because in helping Marcille with her goals, he is quite literally figuring out how to defeat death. This also ties in with another theory that I have about this show, that Laios' magical ability is a lot more advanced than the series is letting on so far. We know that Fallon has an innate magical talent and is looked at as something of a prodigy by the rest of the group, but in the episode where Laios learns magic from Marcille, he's revealed to also be a naturally gifted magic user, to the point where he healed Marcille's petrification after only a few days of studying magic in the first place. Marcille has this single line of dialogue that really made me think about this, where she remarks about Laios' bloodline. Maybe there's something about the Todans and their magical aptitude and their bloodline that we still don't know yet. Maybe it'll come to play with Marcille's goals of also figuring out magic. In the end, Laios inspires Marcille to stop running with a moving speech, and it's only when Marcille stops running from her fear that she's able to reach within, quite literally, and pull out the Mad Mage's tome from the nightmare. The magic book immediately dispels her fear, painting this black and white world with vivid colors, and then everybody wakes up. This could be either symbolic, or we can take this 100% literally, that this book of necromancy, of souls, of ancient magic, is actually the key to defeating death, or it's what gives Marcille hope that death can even be defeated in the first place. Ultimately, I think Marcille's story is going to be one about mortality, of being at the crossroads between accepting death as a natural part of life and using unfathomable dark magic to tamper with it. It's a decision that we might see Marcille have to struggle with going forward, especially if that's the theme of her character, this dichotomy, this duality being the crux of who she wants to be, what she wants to accomplish with her magic. Of course, I could be totally 100% wrong, but it was still nice to make this video and get my thoughts and theories out on digital paper and share it with all of you. Fans of the anime might have their own theories on what this could have meant, if this meant anything at all, and manga readers will actually know if this really meant anything whatsoever. One thing that kind of tipped me off about all of this was that apparently these paintings did not happen in the manga at all, and the anime actually has the benefit of the manga being finished, that it can include things from the perspective of the entire series being already completed. So they can foreshadow events a lot easier than it is to do in an ongoing manga where maybe the storyline wasn't 100% completed. But anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out the video. I do Delicious in Dungeon reactions, so you could check those out if you're a big fan of the series. And be sure to like and subscribe. I think comments might be off on this video because I don't want to be corrected either way. If comments are on, please don't come into this video being like, actually at the end of the series Marcille does so-and-so, because I obviously have not experienced the end of this series and I don't really want my watch of this to be compromised in any way. Comments will be on my Patreon, so if you want to leave any feedback, I would really appreciate that, but it will be on my Patreon for fans that will kind of respect my watching experience. Anyway, thank you guys so much. If you like this, there will be more theory videos and essays type content coming up. I just really wanted to get this one out there because I felt pretty strongly about it and wrote the entire thing late last night. So anyway, hope you guys liked it, and there will be more coming soon. A big thank you to my patrons for making all of this possible. Their names will be on the screen. Thank you guys so much. And if you want to be on the screen too, check out my Patreon, where there's tiers for as little as $1 a month, and it all really helps me. So thank you guys, and I'll talk soon.